1. Welcome in, guys. This is the first ever video of the Motorsports Gambling Network. My name is Josh Neal. I'm going to be your regular guy here at the network channel, whatever you want to call it, joined by one of my good friends in the betting industry, Kyle Dobbeck. I hope I said your last name right. Dobbeck.
That's right.
Dobbeck. Yeah.
Dobbeck, yep.
But this is going to be the first video of many. This is Daytona week. We're mainly going to be talking about NASCAR. Might get Kyle to weigh in on some F1 bets throughout the year if he's feeling it. Obviously, I'm not the F1 guy. I'm more of a meat potato NASCAR guy, but that's sort of what we're going to be doing. We'll talk a little daily fantasy. We're going to talk a little bit of gambling, mostly gambling, especially with all these new states legalizing it. If you're coming here and you don't know anything about NASCAR, hopefully what we can give you today will help you look at some numbers and information and that kind of thing. But if you're new to NASCAR, enjoy it. Daytona 500 is going to be nuts. It does get boring at times, I'll admit, but the ending is always you're never safe in NASCAR. I'll say that. You know, we both have been winning thousands of dollars within, the last couple laps, and it goes into fire and flames. So you got to have a lot of patience with NASCAR. It will award you just as much as it kills you. I'll say that. But moving on into today's show. So we're basically going to be covering a couple of things. We're going to go over the new Cup teams, new drivers. We're going to talk a little bit about Xfinity, and then we'll get into the win predictions and projections that DraftKings gave. We'll do a little bit over under. And then finally, we're going to go over driver skill rankings in Cup. I think that's very important this year, especially with this new car. Obviously, that's going to be able to be, being able to see in practice and stuff like that here in the coming weeks without being at Daytona. But we'll talk a little bit about that. I think we're in agreement on a couple, and obviously we're going to be in disagreement on a couple. But so starting out with the Cub preview, just going over a couple of new teams. Obviously, this is a new car, as I stated earlier. The chassis look more like the car you'd see on the road. That's debatable. I think they still look a little bit different, but I give them props for trying. So the new teams in the Cup Series this year, Colleague Racing, they're moving up full-time. They're going to have 2 cars. AJ Allmendinger, Noah Gragson, Daniel Hemrick will be driving. Is it the 16? I think it's the 16. The 31 is the full-time ride by Justin Haley. Justin Haley coming up from the Xfinity Series. He should be pretty good. They showed a lot of speed at the LA Coliseum race. So after Colleague, a couple of more new teams. Kaz Gralla is going to be driving the 50 car for the money team. Don't really have too much opinion on that. I think that may be just, road courses and super speedways. Not sure about their equipment. I think a lot of their parts and stuff and a lot of help came from the Starcom team. So don't put a lot of stock in them. They were terrible. Let's see here. Who am I? So many new pieces. Help me out here. I'm going blank.
I think just based on what you mentioned, for me, the one that's most interesting is Colleague. I think that they're actually funded pretty well. And when you look at some of the indicators they have in terms of their sponsorship, I think both cars are fully sponsored the entire season, right? With the ones, the Leaf Guard, and I can't remember what the other one is, but it seems, and the ownership seems to be fairly active within the team. So to me, that's a pretty strong indicator that they're in pretty good shape to be able to compete, I think, as a mid-pack team early. So out of the newcomers, that's the one that stands out to me.
Yep. And they're going on to some new additions to teams. Kurt Busch is going from Chip Ganassi. That team's no longer there. They transpired into Trackhouse. Chastain went to Trackhouse. Kurt Busch went to 2311 Racing. That team should be pretty well in form here soon. Kurt Busch is always going to help out any team he goes to. Just going down here, Ty Dillon. Richard Petty Motorsports is now Petty GMS. Ty Dillon's back in the Cup. He's going to be Eric Jones's teammate. Not sure what to make of them. They showed a little bit of speed at the LA Coliseum. That's a to be determined. Rick Ware Racing, they have upped their alliance with Stuart Haas. They showed a lot more speed than I was projecting. So Cody Ware,
For sure.
Cody Ware is definitely going to be in play in DFS, and you may get some top 20 bets. Maybe at Daytona, maybe worth looking at. I don't know necessarily what the odds are right now, but we'll dive into that later. Team Penske, Austin Cindric is moving up from Xfinity. Brad Keselowski, new owner with Roush Fenway. It's now Keselowski, RFK Racing. I don't even go in my mind's racing a million different ways with these new teams. But so he's joined with Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher, I've always been high on. I'm not sure that equipment seems like they're so far behind right now. I'm not sure what to make of them guys. Let's see, Front Row Motorsports, Anthony Alfredo is gone. Up comes Todd Gillen from Trucks. Greg Biffle making his return. New York Racing, they got Hendrick engines. So if he can make the race at Daytona, he's probably worth a dart in fantasy. Ricky Stenhouse, the lone man at JTG Doherty this year. Ron Preece is with Rick Ware Racing. I don't think he's racing this week, but I said that they're probably going to have better cars than what they usually would. Let's see. Harrison Burton is going to Wood Brothers. Matt Benedetto down to the Trucks. We'll talk about. Well, I don't think we're going to talk about Trucks, but we may touch on that next week. Man, I think that might be it. Yeah, so a lot of moving pieces, a lot of new teams. It should make for an interesting time. Cory Lejoy has a new teammate, Aspire. Landon Castle, I think Josh Bilicki, they're going to split that 77 car this year.
Right.
Justin Haley's going to, like I said, colleague full-time. So a lot of moving teams, a lot of new teams, a lot of moving pieces, but just that's a little bit of the Cub preview. Like I said, different cars. If you're joining in, you see Kyle Larson, he kicked ass last year. Obviously he did, but don't put too much stock in it. Obviously he's going to win races, but I wouldn't expect him to win that many races again. You got any thoughts before I go into Xfinity?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the changes, there's a few things that stand out to me, and I think it's going to impact what we see in ownership on Sunday. I think a lot of folks aren't going to realize that a lot of the casuals aren't going to realize that Keselowski's in new equipment, right? And it's a significant downgrade in equipment. And I don't think that we can assume that just because Keselowski's name is on the team, that it's going to be just a solid fit for him. In the positive regression pod this week, David Smith, they closed that down, one of our favorite pods, Josh. He was talking about all those new faces that are at that organization and all the change that's occurring there. It sounds to me like they're just learning how to communicate. So just because we have a big name, a former champ in Keselowski, that's on the name of a team that may seem like it's funded, I don't think that the equipment's going to be up there. And I think a lot of folks, thinking that he has that Penske pedigree behind him and he's strong at these super speedways, I think that we might see a little bit too much ownership on him. So early on in the season, that's something that I'm going to be looking at. I might be on the fade side of Keselowski.
Yeah, I think especially in DFS, he's going to be overpriced, and that's a good fade situation. We'll talk a little bit about him and the win predictions, the over-unders. He's set at 1.5. We'll get into him, but that's going to be a strong under for me, I believe. And I might even put a bet in before this weekend. But moving on to Xfinity. Now Xfinity is just a cluster anymore. Just a couple of notes. Michael Annett is out at Junior Motorsports. Josh Berry. And that's a fantastic move. That I don't know what else to say about that move. Josh Berry's probably going to be in the championship for the way he was looking last year at times. Sam Mayer full-time this year. Berry and him split that ride last year. Our Motorsports, I think it's got Brett Moffitt, Anthony Alfredo, and Jeb Burton. So they're spending some money there. That's going to be interesting to see how they look. For
sure.
They're pretty good at, the plate track. So there's some guys to look forward into DFS this weekend, but I just want to see their speed, at a normal track. Just moving down through here. So colleague, they got a new, I mean, they're new everything just about. AJ Allmendinger's the only one back. Landon Castle taking over for Jeb Burton in the 10. I'm pretty excited for him. You know, I feel like he's put in the work. You know, he's one of them guys you can't really point a finger to and say, you know, he hurts the sport. But I mean, that guy, I remember watching him on iRacing every night. You know, he went from iRacing to racing in full-time Xfinity and now Cup. I mean, Cup half the time. So really excited for Landon Castle. Daniel Hemrick, the champion, never won a race before, wins the season finale, wins the championship. He's full-time at colleague. Like I said, Allmendinger's back. JGR, Joe Gibbs Racing. Looks like they got Drew Dollar in the 18 this weekend. I'm not too sold on him, especially what I've seen in trucks, but that 18 is probably going to be tossed around with John Hunter and young guys, if I had to guess. And oh yeah, Trevor Bayne, can't forget about him. Trevor Bayne's racing like 8 races this year. It's going to be interesting. Brandon Jones back. We all know who that is. Austin Hill. So RCR, man, I love, so RCR is probably my most interesting thing to look forward to in Xfinity this year. Austin Hill coming up from trucks, Sheldon Creed coming up from trucks. They're spending big money in Xfinity this year. A major talent upgrade, I believe, over Mike Snyder. Nothing against him, but I mean, these guys are, I think, way better than him. Let's see here, going through here. Sam Hunt Racing, they got Jeffrey Earnhardt and Ryan Truex. They went from 1 car to 2 cars this year, so that's interesting. Myatt Snyder in the 31 for Jordan Anderson. I think he brought the money to them. Natalie Decker's going to try to race for Ream Motorsports. That'll be interesting. I think she's got some new money. I seen that Busch Light's going to sponsor these girls now. So she's probably going to have a bunch of money behind her. Jesse Iwuji, he has a new team. Emmett Smith backing him. That'll be interesting. Tommy Joe Martins, man, this guy, he's got like 10 drivers on his roster. I can't even keep up, but it's going to be him and Cesar Beccarella for Daytona this week. You know, you'll have to just Google, you know, that team, Alpha Prom Racing. They got a complete makeover. So some money's being spent at that organization. Ty Gibbs is running full-time this year, I would assume. I think Interstate Sports Clips, Monster, they just came out today and announced all that. So we're big Ty Gibbs fans on this show. Brandon Brown, I think everybody knows who he is by now. I don't even need to get into that. Josh Williams switching teams. Now he's racing for BJ McLeod. Riley Herbst is back. That's about it. So Xfinity this year is going to be interesting. It's probably going to be Ty Gibbs versus Junior Motorsports. I think that's all you got to really look at in terms of Xfinity. Do you have any early thoughts on the season?
Oh, I think I would agree with you. I mean, I think it's Ty Gibbs' world and we're all living in it. I think the talent gap and the equipment gap and everyone else, it's substantial. We were both talking before the pod, like we haven't been able to find any season-long bets on our books here in Virginia, where we could do season-long Xfinity championship bets. And, I would be all over Ty if they released that. This weekend, maybe not the spot given the variance that we have at this track. But that's the biggest takeaway for me is just to remember, we call him Ty God for a reason in our Slack. So the other thing for me too, and I agree with you again, Josh, we're not going to agree each time, but there is something that's really compelling about RCR this year. I think in both Cup and Xfinity, I think that the partnership they have with Hendrick and what's going on at Chevrolet is an indicator that there's some strong partnerships. I think there's investment in both series that is coming through here from Chevrolet to RCR that for a driver like Sheldon Creed in particular, I think he's really strong. I think he's shown a lot of promise. He has the ability to flourish at a number of different tracks. The last thing I'll say, Josh, before we maybe get your thoughts or move on. For me, the most interesting piece of this series this year is going to be the road courses again, because you're going to see a lot of guys at the cookie cutters and the ovals that are really strong that might not be so strong because this is a development series. where you see some other guys where the equipment advantage is negated a little bit. So you'll see the Alex Labbés, the Jeffrey Clements come up and be able to be a lot stronger at road courses. So that gives us a bit of an edge in betting, I think, above the books, because they set the baseline based on results, and it gives us an edge in DFS, of course. So those are my 3 takeaways for Xfinity.
Yeah. And I mean, we love road courses, and,
Yes.
Sheldon Creed's been kicking ass at the road courses in trucks. So very interested to see him and Ty Gibbs and a couple of them other guys battle it out. So should be a fun series. Like I said, Xfinity, I'm kind of looking more towards Xfinity this year, like looking forward to it more than any other series. So should be fun, should be a lot of money to be made. But moving on here to win predictions. So these are from DraftKings Sportsbook. I couldn't find them anywhere else. So we'll just go through a couple. We'll just do a quick rundown here. The first one is William Byron at 2.5. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
We can trade off. How about that? I'll say for Billy B, I'd actually go over on that. I think the equipment's going to be strong this year for Hendrick. I really think it's going to be Hendrick and JGR that are going to be leading the pack. I think that they have an advantage in terms of R&D in, adjusting to the new generation. And I think the trajectory on Billy B's growth is really strong. So he's a bit of a robot sometimes. Sometimes he doesn't feel that vibration, blows out the tire, and you get a little bit frustrated with him. But there's a lot of promise there. There's a reason why he's in the 24 early. And, I think we might see a little bit of a jump for him this year. So I would go over. How about you?
Oh, yeah. I think I was telling the Slack group earlier a couple weeks ago that I think William Byron's probably going to win 4 races. I mean, last year, man, if he was in the final 4, he would have final 8. I think he got eliminated in the round of 12. He had like a flat tire or something, I think. But if he would have advanced, man, he would have been in the final 4. Like, he was on a roll. And I mean, there was times last year he had that streak of consecutive top 10s. I mean, he really came into his own last year. This year, I don't see why he's going to stop. If you're going to rank the Hendrick drivers, which, that kind of leads into driver skill rankings, but, he's, a lot of people said, the guy, he came from iRacing. And, with him, it was just lack of experience. But, man, you put him in everything and he's won, and he was the only Hendrick guy at times on the 1.5 miles that was challenging Larson. You had Elliot at times, Bowman was back there, but William Byron, man, if it wasn't for Kyle Larson in a Hendrick car, William Byron could have had like 6 wins last year, and that's just, it's mind boggling. So for me, you're setting it at 2.5. I got to think he's going to win 3. Bowman won 4 last year, and Bowman was, hot and cold. So William Byron's probably going to hit 4. That's my prediction. So I don't have a model. I don't have anything like that. I just have a brain, and that's what my big brain is telling me. So moving on to here, this is the one I was talking about earlier, Brad Keselowski, 1.5. So here's the thing, and this is just my point of view. He only can win at Daytona or Talladega. And there's really no other option. The guy sucks at road courses. And he's awful. I think he won Sonoma once, but I think Sonoma is like maybe he won Watkins Glen. He either won one of the 2, but ever since then, man, this guy looks lost. He just gets ran over, and he, that was in Penske equipment. So for me, I don't think he's going to win a race this year. I'm kind of curious why Vegas thinks he's going to win at least one. It's got to be Daytona or Talladega, because he doesn't stand a chance at, like you were saying, David Smith is now over there at Penske, so he knows a little bit more than everybody else. And if he thinks they're, iffy right now, I don't see it in the cards. So that's one of those. If he wins 1, if he gets lucky and wins 1, you're still looking good on the under. And I don't think he's going to win a race. So I think that's a very strong bet to play the under.
I'm totally with you. Yeah, I think this is the strongest bet on the board right now for me. We have a field that is much stronger. I think is going to be much stronger at the top in terms of, for Hendrick last year, obviously it was the top 3 cars, maybe Bowman the 4th. And then we had Hamlin, it was really we always knew it was going to be those 4 really challenging. right? And I think we're going to have the full 8 from the top 2 teams, plus probably 2 of the Penske cars that are going to be really taking most of the wins this year. And I think there's maybe 2 or 3 teams that are even better than, RFK, than Roush Keselowski. So I think your point is real strong that the only time he can win is at these super speedways. He is not going to have the speed at the 1.5s, and it's not as easy to just luck into a win when you have I think these stronger teams at the top. It just doesn't happen. You need that carnage to be able to get there. So yeah, I think it's a real strong bet. You're still feeling pretty good even if he lucks into the last Talladega race and wins. You're still feeling pretty good about that spot.
Yeah, I have no clue why they said it at 1.5, but jump on that while you can. It's a DK Sportsbook. So moving on to Chase, 3.5. Do you know off the top of your head how many he won last year? I think it's like 3 or 4. Yeah, I think it was 4.
Yeah, I don't.
3.5. I mean, look, road courses, I don't really think this car is going to necessarily do anything to worsen his chances at road courses. If anything, it should help him just because of the talent. And he's obviously, when we talk about road courses, I think it's him and Larson. I don't want to hear any of that trash about Truex. Truex is no longer there. It's Chase and Larson. And William Byron is slowly on their tail. Like I said, he'll be there in a couple of years. But 3.5 with this new car, I mean, you got to think he's going to win 2 road courses. He's probably going to win a short track like Bristol, maybe Martinsville. Who knows? Maybe he wins 3 road courses. There's so many now. He could win Daytona. I just think 3.5 is a little too low for him. I think last year, Larson challenged him a little bit too much on the road courses. I think this year, Chase, 3.5, I can see him winning 4. So I'm willing to go over on that and say he wins 4.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. He won it Circuit of the Americas and Road America last year. So those are his 2 wins, surprisingly, right? Maybe why the number is a little bit too low. Still, for me, 3.5, I almost say it's a no bet, because that's where I would set the line. And I think there's just better spots. You kind of got to let the value come to you. If we had a couple more road courses on the schedule, if we had 2 more road courses on the schedule, I think you could bet it. But the way that it is now, I think I would say a no bet or lean to the over.
Fair. Kyle Busch. So this is very interesting. Kyle Busch, 2.5. This is probably one of my biggest stands of the year. I think Kyle Busch blows this number out. This is the practice king right here. And we've seen it a little bit at the LA Coliseum. I think, they still had some kinks to work out, but just that little bit of practice, you could definitely tell that Kyle Busch was on top of it. So if it wasn't for Logano, Kyle Busch would have won that. You could argue if Reddick wouldn't have broke his transaxle, he would probably blew them all out. But I think Kyle Busch, you think about it, Pocono last year, he won without, he couldn't switch gears. He was stuck in 4th the whole time. So,
right.
So yeah, I think Kyle Busch, he can easily win 3. Give me the over. I don't think there's much to be said.
I agree with you. I think this is also a strong over. The biggest thing for me that the reason I'm bullish on KB is there's continuity with that team. Like you said, there's something about the way that he communicates with his crew to be able to give them information about what he's feeling in the car, to be able to adjust and learn throughout the entire race weekend as a continuous event that he lost during the pandemic. And so we saw his results dip as a result. That is not just randomness. That to me is a direct correlation. So like you said, practice king, I think is a great label. And I think we'll see it manifest here. Also, I think he's a little bit hungry. Like he see these young guys coming up, you know what I mean? And I think this is the fire. I think we start to see the fire of Kyle Busch here a little bit. So I would also agree. I would predict 4.5 if I was setting the line.
And also, he's been smiling a lot this year. He obviously was a little pissed off after the race, but I think I don't know this for a fact, but I think he's seen a sports therapist or some psychologist because there's no way this guy is that happy. Maybe he's happy watching his kid. I mean, his kid's kicking ass in the those little midget cars. So maybe he's happy. I don't know, but I think he's trying something new and approaching things a different way. So I think if anything, that should help. So enough about him. I don't like talking about him too much, but that's about the nicest thing you'll hear me say about him. Moving on, Kyle Larson, 6.5. So this is, man, it's so tough. 6.5. I'll let you lead off because I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I mean, if this was the same generation in the same car, 6.5 wins is still pretty substantial. Now we go into the uncertainty and the significant change of an entire new generation, and you have to take the under. I mean, he had a generational season, right? He had a season for the ages, and it's going to be real hard to repeat that. So he's probably going to run a little bit worse than he did last year in general. He's probably going to meet a little bit more competition from his teammates. There's not going to be that gap within a team. So couple that on to the idea that they say that this generation evens out the entire field a little bit more. So we might see a few more mid-pack teams taking wins away. And I think you have to take the under. I mean, you don't feel good about it, but it's one of those things like you get a double-digit dog at home, you know, on Monday night in the NFL between teams that are in division rivals. Like most of the time you're going to be thinking about taking the number, even if you don't feel too good about it. So that's my analysis of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, if he gets 6, you're still winning that bet if it, you know, go under. 7 wins is a lot. And like you said, I mean, I'm hoping Tyler Reddick can, you know, win a couple of races this year. I'm hoping maybe Collie can steal a couple here and there. Maybe, like I said, hopefully William Byron even steals a couple from him this year. Yeah. I think there's so many candidates. And if this car truly is, I'm not going to say it's going to even out a bunch of teams because I think we're already seeing it here. You know, Timmy Hill in the practices at Daytona, he still looks like a snail compared to everybody else. The cream's going to rise to the top eventually, but I do think the first, you know, maybe 1/4, first half of the year, I think there's some wins to be had and stolen away. I think by the time you get to the latter part of the year, I would think Hendrick's probably going to be there with Penske and Gibbs as your top teams, and maybe even Stewart-Haas. You know, they've upped the program a little bit, and that's what just going off topic here on Stewart-Haas, and we'll talk about it in these Daytona props. But I think our hypothesis last year was they gave up. They're focusing on the next gen car, and that obviously I think looks to be the case because they even have Cody Ware looking like he's a good talent. So, like I said, we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But moving on, and the hat says it all for you. Christopher Bell, a half a win. I give you a lot of crap about the guy, but half a win. I mean, you got to take the over. I mean, the guy's good at, just about every track. He might not be the best at every track, but he's going to be there. He's going to be lurking. And, a couple of adjustments here and there. I mean, half a win. I mean, what?
Yeah, I think that's a complete misprice again. This is the second strongest one on the board for me, other than the under on the Keselowski. I mean, he's in. I think HMS, Hendrick, and JGR, they're going to be the top 2 teams this year, and you just have to take it based upon equipment. Let alone that he's a growing driver who I think is starting to come into his own a little bit more. He had a win last year. He was in decent position a few times. He ran bad in a few spots last year too. Like he had some issues that popped up at the end of races. So he gets a little bit of run good. I don't know. I think somebody who's a talent on JGR with that equipment in this situation, he's been running races all summer or all off season. He's got that dirt acumen. If anything, you got him to like him at Bristol Dirt. Right? He's got to be in the top 3. Then he's got to be in the top 10 at every single road course. So that comes out at the end of the day. You got to feel pretty good about that. I mean, I feel pretty good putting a couple units on that personally.
Yeah. And I think, thinking back on it, he had so much, I think it was Coda. I was so, DFS wise, I was so heavy on him. And I think it just seemed like he was always getting caught in other people's mess. There was a couple, he could have avoided, but, it just seems like he was he was just had so much bad luck. So you got to think something will turn. Hell, he even won a race last year. So, I mean, there's just too much there. You have to take a chance. Keselowski at 1.5, and this guy's at a half a win. I mean, that's flip-flop those maybe. That would make more sense. But
yeah, I agree.
So our last one here is Alex Bowman at 1.5. Last year, Greg Ives is a great crew chief. Not to take anything from Alex Bowman, but Greg Ives, I think, made so many good adjustments. I think was it Martinsville that he basically ran away from him there at the end. There was just so many races that he was able to flex his muscle at. But I'm a big Greg Ives fan. If you've not heard the Greg Ives podcast on the Dell Jr. podcast, I'd go listen to that. That was one of my favorite episodes, just learning about Greg Ives, but that guy works his tail off, and he's easily, I think, a top 5 crew chief. So that alone, Greg Ives, and you're talking about Hendrick. I'm hoping William Byron turns into the Alex Bowman of this year, but still 1.5, you're asking a Hendrick car. It's kind of like, Christopher Bell, you need a Gibbs car to win one race. You're asking a Hendrick car to win 2. I don't feel as strong about it as the other bets, just because Alex Bowman, to me, you got Chase, you got Larson, you got Byron, and I think Alex Bowman's down here and they're up here, but at the same time, he's got a great crew chief, and I'll take my chances and go over, but that's more like a half a unit play for me, if anything. I don't feel great about it, but he's got a wizard on top of the pit box.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And actually, I hadn't considered that. Might be something else to think about too, is the impact of crew chiefs on this next generation, and how that decision making and how that learning actually impacts teams from week to week. That might be actually something we keep track of here throughout the season. For me, I think this would actually be an under. I think honestly, I wouldn't bet this one. You let the value come to you. But last year he had 4 wins, and a season when Hendrick was utterly dominant, other than Denny Hamlin. It was Denny Hamlin and Hendrick last year that were winning most of the races. And we can't assume that is going to carry over to this year. So 4th car on that team, and I don't think he's as strong as Bell. Of the Penske's, JGR, Hendrick, you got to think he's in the bottom tier of the drivers out of that crew. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 2 wins, but is it juiced either one way or the other? I guess the juice would come into play here. Because if it's like plus money on the over, and it's significant plus money, then yeah, maybe you could talk yourself into that.
Let me check.
It's juiced to the under. Sorry, it's juiced to the over. It's minus 145 over. So plus 115 under. I mean, I would never, I don't think I would drink the 145 juice to pay over on this one personally.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't either. But I mean, Hendrick car. Anyways, that wraps up the win predictions. We got a couple more here. We have about 6 more minutes on this first 40-minute Zoom here. Yes, we're using Zoom. I need to get back to my gaming PC before I can, do all the fancy stuff. So bear with me here this first couple of weeks. So driver skill rankings, what do you want to do? Do you want to skip that, or do you just want to go straight to props? What do you want to do? I'll let you pick. Do people want to hear us rank the top drivers?
Let's just top of the props. What do you think? Save that for another. That's an evergreen question.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So
cool.
So looking here at the props, these are on DK. I should have probably wrote down the odds, but the first one is Bubba Wallace versus Eric Almarola. And first, I think a lot of the public's probably just going to go hammer Bubba because he won at what was it, Talladega last year when the rain came out. Was it Daytona? It was Talladega, wasn't it? I think it was Talladega.
Yes.
But Eric Almarola, man, this guy should have won the Daytona 500 if Austin Dillon didn't take him out. And he's always up there on these plate tracks. If you're playing DFS, I'll try to throw in some stuff here for DFS, but if you're, Eric Almarola is probably a top 6-7 plate track guy. You got to separate. So here's the thing when you talk about these odds and stuff. Kyle Larson's probably going to be up there in odds. But if you ask me, he's not a top 10 plate track guy. His odds are way juiced. He's not a top 10 plate track guy. He never does well. And you can obviously see it just the way he races throughout. So if you see a Larson prop, do yourself a favor, study the other person and take a chance on it if they give you good odds. That's my advice this week on props. I haven't seen a lot of Larson odds out there. And I think sports books know that deep down. That people eat that up, the smart people. But so Bubba versus Almarola, I'm willing to bet Almarola on this one. I think it's even here on both. I think it's minus 110 on both, depending on the site. But I'm going Almarola.
Yep, I agree. It is 110 on each side to this. I think you actually nailed everything that I was going to say. I'm in complete agreement on all aspects of that. I think Stuart Haas is going to be stronger this year in general. Granted, you're really just betting on one or the other of them to not get in a wreck, most likely. And just that alone, I trust Eric Almarola's acumen and his a bit more conservative approach than Bubba. So that'd be my bet too.
That's another good point. I'm going to go off topic on these, but I mean, once we dive into the analysis, that brings up some other stuff to talk about. There's a list of guys. This is how I play DFS at play tracks. And I know I'm probably the stooge that always does this. And I rarely play play tracks DFS, I'll be honest with you. But when I do, there's a list of guys that I know for a fact they're going to drop out of the pack and they're going to be safe. They're going to be there with 40 laps to go every race. It never fails. I'm going to try to name them off the top of my head. I'm probably going to forget, but if you're playing DFS, just try to keep this in mind. Eric Almarola is one of these guys. Kevin Harvick has become one of these guys where they'll drop to the back of the pack and just ride around. Wouldn't surprise me if Cole Custer and Briscoe just join him at the back. Let's see here. Newman used to be. So that's the thing about Newman used to be the hammer here at these plate tracks. He's gone. But Cory Lejoy is one of these guys. He for sure now, I think Spire, they don't have the cars I think that most teams do. So I know for a fact Cory Lejoy will be there with 30 laps to go. Chris Buescher and Keselowski, I would assume Keselowski's probably going to play this smart. He's probably going to go back there with Buescher and conserve his stuff. And that goes back to our point. If Keselowski's going to win one of these races, it's going to be at Daytona or Talladega. And I would expect him to be, conservative at this race. Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon is back. Ty Dillon used to be one of my favorite DFS plays on plate tracks. You won't hear me say that a lot this year, but Ty Dillon, I would expect him and Eric Jones to fall back to and be in that safe group. Other than that, I don't know if you can think of any that are, decent drivers, not the junk cars, but those are the guys that you usually see hang out at the back and survive the carnage.
Yeah, that's the group. And in particular, the most surprising one of those is Cory Lejoy for me. He always finds a way through. Like, he's never in strong equipment, but he always outperforms his equipment in these spots. I think in DFS in particular, he's really attractive for that reason. A really strong play. I do miss Ryan Newman. You just knew it. You knew he was going to be there. So we got to find our new Ryan Newman. I think maybe for me that could be Haley. He's done real good work here on plate tracks and other series. So, and in Cup, because he fell into that Cup win. So,
yep. Okay, so next matchup we'll talk about is Joey Logano versus Ryan Blaney. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is minus 110 on both sides for this as well. Just for me, Logano's been in so much trouble lately. I used to call him, a weasel because he used to weasel his way out of these wrecks. But lately, the tide has turned and he gets in every single wreck. So for me, I'm a Ryan Blaney fan. If nobody knew that, if you didn't know that, you'll know it here within a couple of weeks. But I'm going Logano on this one. I think the tide's about to turn his way. He's already got some momentum from the first win of the season. I'm not going to predict him to win the Daytona 500, but Ryan Blaney is a very aggressive plate track racer. That's why he has wins. I think he's won 3 of the last 9. So obviously Ryan Blaney is going to be somewhere near the front. But whether it's him, barking up the wrong tree and causing a wreck, or him being right in the middle of the hornet's nest, he's usually right there around the wreck. Same thing with Stenhouse. They have the same mindset when it comes to these races. So I'm going to go Logano just because I think he's a little bit more conservative. He's really aggressive too, but Ryan Blaney, man, he's one of them. He's going to irritate the hornet's nest and probably get stung.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I think for me, it kind of depends on qualifying a little bit because Joey's so good up front. Like he can hold the line up front. He knows how to move from top to bottom. I mean, unlike some other folks, some of these other drivers here, they simply don't know how to do it. I mean, we've seen Ricky put on some just atrocious blocks. Same thing with Bubba. You just never know what's going to happen with that. Ross Chastain has, when he's got up there, made a few aggressive moves. In terms of Joey and Blaney, honestly, I probably wouldn't bet this one, but I think I would lean, unless Joey's like starting towards the front, I think I would lean Blaney. Interestingly enough, Blaney's season-long line is lower odds than Joey's. So the books like Blaney over the season more than Joey, which to me is like that's not really intuitive. Like I wouldn't have guessed that. I don't know that plays out here so much, but Blaney for me is one of the drivers to watch and to look at what the public perception is on him, because I think in general people are going to favor Joey as the lead Penske driver, but I think there's something sneaky about Blaney all year long.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Blaney led the charge there towards the end of the year last year. So definitely something to keep an eye on. So finally, our last prop, I think we're going to go Denny Hamlin versus Chase Elliott. So look, I don't know how to put this. This is probably easier than what the odds say, but I mean, I'm going Denny Hamlin in this spot. Chase Elliott, he came in second last year. If you're a believer in, that sort of thing where the tides turn, I am anyway. Usually, you finish second, if you're looking at racing reference or driver averages, you see kind of finishes third, he finishes 29th, finishes fifth, he finishes 30th, that kind of thing. Obviously, it's a conspiracy, but Denny Hamlin is always there. This guy could probably lead every lap of the race if he wanted to. I think interesting enough, just to go off topic, if you're talking about the top plate racers, I think it's Denny Hamlin. I think it's Joey Logano probably. I think Ryan Blaney's right up there. Chase is halfway decent. Where'd my Zoom go here? Oh, there we go. I think, Chase is decent. He's right up there, top 5. But if you're talking about just overall, talent at these tracks, Denny Hamlin's, top notch. Austin Dillon's another good one. We didn't really talk much about him on this show, but Austin Dillon's one of them. He's always up there at these tracks. So he might be worth the look, if you're looking to bet the race itself. But yeah, I'm going Denny here. I'm interested to hear your thoughts though on like the top plate racers. Do you have like a top 5?
Yeah, I'm on the Denny side too. I think it's pretty easy here. What I like about Denny is he was on a podcast, I can't remember which one it was, a couple of years ago, where he was talking about his like mindset, he has like a whole like paradigm, like this is how I'm going to approach play tracks, super speedways. And the way he gets into the weekend is thinking about like the feel for the car, and he's approaching it from like a learning perspective. And you'll see him move around and he'll just bail out and just get in the back if he doesn't like what's going on. Like he observes his environment. I think a lot of these guys get out there and they put the tunnel vision on and they don't really get a feel for the environment, especially early on in the race. That's a savvy that I think he has that a lot of these other, stronger drivers at other tracks don't necessarily have. To your question about top five, yeah, I think it's Denny. I think it's Blaney. I think Logano's up there in the top five. I think Reddick has the potential, because I just like his feel. He hasn't really got there yet, but I think he's got the headspace there. And I think actually Chase probably is pretty close, just because I don't know. I like his approach in general. That fifth spot I think is a little bit open. But to your point about Austin Dillon, actually, I think one of my favorite prop bets is number of cars in the top. I think it's the top 10 on DK Sportsbook. I don't know if they still have it up. I'm looking for it, but it was RCR and 2311. More cars in the top 10. And to me, Austin Dillon and Reddick, and I think it was minus 120 on the side of RCR. That to me is a real strong bet. That's the only other one that kind of caught my eye. So I don't know. What did you say your top five was for plates?
I would go Denny Hamlin. If you're going off stats, you got to go Ryan Blaney. I think Logano is probably 3, if not 2. Probably flip flop those. I think 4. I mean, I'm big on Austin Dillon, Eric Almarola. They're always there. I'm going to go Eric Almarola at 4. He's always there. Stats don't lie, and it's like what you said. If you see hail coming, if you see a tornado about to come, Eric Almarola and Denny Hamlin are usually at the back of that. They're usually the ones driving through it rather than being in it. I'd go Almarola 4, and man, I'll probably go Chase 5th. Just Keselowski's good too. Don't get me wrong. That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's right there at it too. I'm just not sure. I'm not sold that he is going to be able to work with Team Penske still. There was a time where, it seemed like he killed Logano last year for the 500. Let's not forget that. So, I mean, I'm not too sure. He's wrecked Blaney at these tracks. I'm not too sure Penske's going to want to work with him. Obviously, he's still good buds with both of them. But, it seems like every time it's near the end of a race at one of these tracks, Keselowski is almost killing his teammates. So I'm not too sure they're going to want to work with him as much, which kind of hurts, my thoughts on him. But he's top 10 for sure. But I'd go Chase as 5th. So I guess Hamlin, Blaney, Logano, Almarola, Chase. That'd be my 5.
I think that's a strong top 5. If I'm thinking about guys that could get in there, I think Reddick for me. I think Justin Haley, we mentioned him before. Justin Haley, I think the trajectory on him is upward too, right? Like
I keep forgetting about him. Yeah, I mean, he'll be up there.
I think I think the public will not, and DFS will not be on him as much as they probably should be. I mean, it depends on where he qualifies, but.
Yeah. And, as we're talking, it looks like Daniel Hemrick, I think out of like 12 cars, Hemrick's at the top. So I think them colleague cars, I mean.
Yeah, there's some juice there.
Yeah, they're I was listening on Sirius today, and they were like, these colleague guys, if they're going to race, they're here for wins. They're not going to enter cars that are not capable of winning. So, just one of these points to think about as we end this show today is like, colleague is there to win. They're chasing wins. They're not going to be there to be some 20th place car. So, I think that's very important to keep in the back of our brain the rest of the year. But that'll wrap it up. Look, this is the first show. I'm about to start editing. I promise I'm no Hollywood editor, producer, all that. But I'm going to do my best to edit this up. We had to do 2 videos because we're on Zoom. Like I said, sorry. I'll get OBS Studio here soon. But if you could, drop a like. Follow me on Twitter at Burnout Avenue. Follow Kyle at KG Dobby. Also, if you're interested in a DFS group, betting group, look at David James on Twitter. I'm not sure his Twitter handle. But if you follow me and if you're interested in joining a DFS group for about, I think, $75, we'll hook you up. You'll have a good conversation every week in the Slack chat group. Very intelligent people. And like I said, if you're joining this first time, you don't know anything about NASCAR, it's worth, if you don't play fantasy, you can learn a lot just from gambling wise. All of us gamble. So, hit me up if you're interested. Like I said, subscribe to the channel. Not sure when Kyle will be back. Hopefully he's back every week if I can get him to do it.
Sure.
But with that being said, it was a pleasure. Can't wait.
Likewise, thank you.
Can't wait to do it again whenever that is. But I'll be back next week with another video. I think we're going to Fontana Auto Club, whatever they call it nowadays. So hopefully a little bit better preview. I know we focus more on gambling here on this show, but it'll be a mix. So with that being said, I'm going to get off here. I got money to win at college basketball, but it was a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Josh.